we've been learning this Gemara over here that gave us some health advice, telling us to eat salt after the meal, drink water. It mentioned about eating lentils and eating mustard. These should be once every 30 days, but every day is not good. Said that lentils, if you have lentils every day, it's kasha l'reach hapeh. It could be bad for
bad breath.
Bad breath. And the reason why mustard you shouldn't have every day, it's bad for a weak heart. It could cause a weak heart. And then it mentioned that eating small fish is if you eat small fish, you won't come to any stomach sicknesses and any intestinal sicknesses. And not only that, but small fish, they cause you to flourish and reproduce and be healthy. Your whole body is healthy. Then the Gemara spoke about fennel. And fennel is person who has it won't have a heartache. And then the Gemara asked, what do you mean? Isn't fennel dangerous? And the Gemara said there's a difference between smelling fennel and eating the taste of fennel or eating fennel. And I mentioned the story of Reb Yirmiya's mother used to put the fennel in the she would attach fennel to the bread, and then she would peel it off before he ate it, so he wouldn't smell the fennel. And then the Gemara mentioned that Rabbi Yehuda says that you're supposed to have a specific bracha for the different categories of vegetables. And he said certain vegetables, you would say the Boirei Mine Deshaim, who creates types of herbage. And the Gemara said the halacha doesn't follow Rabbi Yehuda, but it did give a source. It gave us a pasuk that Baruch Hashem Yom Yom, blessed is Hashem for each day. And the initial thought of the Gemara was that, what does that mean? You're only going to thank Hashem for the day and not for the night? And then the Gemara explained, no, it means each day you're supposed to give Hashem you're supposed to praise Hashem, a blessing corresponding to that day. So for a holiday, you say special blessings. For a weekday, you say special blessings. For Shabbos, you say special blessings. Each holiday, each day has certain brachas, certain things that we thank Hashem. And I think what it's referring to, I guess, is the Shemona Esrei, that the Chachamim established different bracha on each of the for each of the special days, the Shemona Esrei, and possibly within the Shemona Esrei, we speak about each thing like Zman Matan Terasenu for Shavuos, or for Pesach, the time that we were redeemed from Egypt, and for Sukkot, Zman Simchasenu. So each of the holidays we celebrate, we emphasize the miracle of that day. And even Shabbos, we mentioned by Yechulu Hashemayim, Hashem finished creation on Shabbos. So each of the days is a we praise Hashem, me'ein berchosav, about those days corresponding to the blessings of that day. So Rabbi Yehuda says, it would seem like we should do the same thing for brachas. We should praise Hashem, specifics. We should specify each thing, each day, each type of food. And obviously the rabbis disagree, and the rabbis hold that it's enough to say a bracha on vegetables. You don't have to go that specific. And the question is, so what exactly, what is the opinion? How do the rabbis understand the verse? Let me mute everyone here. Okay. How do the rabbis understand that pasuk? And in order to understand that, we have to realize that there is another argument between the rabbis and Rabbi Yehuda, and it's regarding the laws of reciting brachas on mitzvahs. And there is a Gemara in Sukkah that brings this argument down, and it talks about if you have a lot of mitzvahs in front of you, should you recite one bracha for all the mitzvahs, or should you recite each mitzvah a separate bracha? Like, I'm gonna put tefillin on, I'll say the bracha on tefillin. I'm about to put up a mezuzah, say the bracha on mezuzah. Should you do each bracha individually, or should you just say Asher Kiddushanu b'mitzvahs v'tzivanu al hamitzvahs? If you have a lot of mitzvahs in front of you, should you just say one bracha for all the mitzvahs, the bracha al hamitzvahs? And this is an argument between the rabbis and Rabbi Yehuda. And what do? We actually hold like Rabbi Yehuda, and we recite the bracha on each mitzvah. So it's interesting, regarding the laws of blessings on food, on vegetables, we follow the rabbis. Regarding the laws of brachas on mitzvahs, we follow Rabbi Yehuda. Yes, Ben.
I wanted to say brachot is actually how we feel about the thing too. So on holidays, we specify the specialty of that day to us. On a regular day, there is not many days that there is something special for us, but some days there is. So it depends how we feel about things, whether we say the blessing, meaning the blessing, not just saying it, or just saying for every day the same one, because there is no big difference between the days.
Mm-hmm. Right. The thing is, the rabbis established certain,
guidelines. But if you don't feel it, it doesn't mean anything. You really have to feel it.
So you got to feel it. Fine. But in any event, the argument between Rabbi Yehuda and the rabbis stands if you're supposed to specify the brachas or not. Should you do that? I mean, of course, you're right, Ben. You should feel it. But and appreciate what Hashem gives us, and the mitzvahs is also that Hashem made us holy with His mitzvahs and gives us the opportunity to do mitzvahs and to connect with Him. But and for sure we should feel it. No, there's no question what you're saying is true. We have to feel it. But still, the question is, how should we actually word the blessings? So the halacha follows Rabbi Yehuda regarding many mitzvahs. If you have a number of mitzvahs in front of you, you're supposed to follow the mitzvahs. But when it comes to, you're supposed to say each mitzvah, specify the mitzvahs. And each mitzvah you say a separate bracha on. When it comes to vegetables, Rabbi Yehuda says you should divide the vegetables into different categories and say different brachas on the vegetables. On there, we don't paskin like Rabbi Yehuda. There we just say it's enough to vegetables. So one of the explanations is that when it comes to mitzvahs, each mitzvah is an entity of its own. But the rabbis felt vegetables are vegetables. So mitzvahs, each mitzvah is a mitzvah on its own. But vegetables, the rabbis see them as all one type. And even though you could, of course, divide them further, and each vegetable itself is something different than a carrot is not the same as a celery. But nevertheless, the rabbis see them as in one category. However, mitzvahs, each mitzvah is an entity of its own. And yes, Susan.
I'm making chicken soup, and I have a habit of thanking God for providing the vegetables and the chicken, and in other words, individually, I think, and while I'm cooking. Now, maybe that's incorrect because I'm
You can
not,
thank Hashem as much as you want, but I wouldn't recite a bracha. As long as you don't say a bracha with
but I'm
Hashem's
not
name.
eating anything. I'm not eating, I'm cooking only.
You could cook only, and you could thank Hashem throughout your cooking in the whole day. You could say Tehillim and thank Hashem, and that's wonderful. Just don't say a bracha on cooking.
Right.
Okay, don't say bracha with Hashem's name. You can say Tehillim and say
Right.
verses and thank
Right.
Hashem, and you
Right.
say your own thanks, and that's fine. But just don't
not
just don't say
Saying
a
any
bracha.
blessings, I'm saying just because I'm
Thanks. You could say thanks, right? Sure.
exact.
Now, the other answer to this question of why we follow Rabbi Yehuda in the laws of mitzvahs, when you have a lot of mitzvahs in front of you, we don't follow him when it comes to the vegetables. Another answer is that the end of that verse, Rabbi Yehuda has a source. And what is his source? His source is the verse, Baruch Hashem, Yom Yom, Yamis Lanu. Yamis Lanu means he loads us with blessings, with gifts. Now, what do we get these gifts for? It's rewards for the mitzvahs. So the rabbis see that verse to be a source. The understanding is that verse is a source for mitzvahs, that mitzvahs should be divided into categories, into each mitzvah on its own. However, and that's why we paskin like Rabbi Yehuda, because the verse implies mitzvahs, because it's talking about reward for the mitzvahs, because it says Yamas Lanu. Yamas Lanu means he loads us with rewards, with blessings. And so the rewards and blessings are for doing the mitzvahs. So the mitzvahs, we are supposed to praise Hashem, Baruch Hashem. We say Baruch Hashem Yom Yom Yamas Lanu for all the blessings that he gives us, the rewards for the mitzvahs. So each mitzvah should be a Yom Yom in a way of each day, each type. However, when it comes to vegetables, that is food blessing. It's not on mitzvahs, it's on food. That would be enough to be one category for all the vegetables. So that's the explanation. Of course, that's the way the commentaries explain this this Gemara. Then the Gemara talked about reviewing, learning something new, and reviewing our learning. And the Gemara mentioned that Hashem is not like humans, and by Hashem, or by spiritual matters, it says a vessel that is full absorbs more, but a vessel that is empty doesn't hold. How, as it says, Im Shamaya Tishma, you listened when you were young, early on, then you'll be able to listen later. Im Shamaya Tishma. But by a person, an empty vessel can hold things, a full vessel can't. So by Hashem, it's different. In other words, the more you learn, when you're young, you'll be able to learn better. You'll be able to learn better when you're old. What do you say, Isaac?
Now I'm saying the kolel here is translating that a person's vessel can hold things if it is empty, not if it's full. Hashem's creations can contain if they are full of chachma, but not if they are empty. And that's why he's saying in Shemaya Tishmu, that if you listen to Divrei Torah once, you will listen again. And that if you listen to what you already heard, you're reviewing it, you will understand even new things.
That's the next Gemara about
Right,
reviewing.
that's the final part. I'm just reading the English here that the Kolel did. I'm sorry, I went too far.
What did you say? But I don't get what you're adding. Could you just emphasize what you're
Nothing.
changing?
What I'm saying is that saying it's just the opposite. By us, a vessel can only hold things if it's empty, not if it's full. What they added here was the creations can contain, let me find it. Hashem's creations can contain, if they are full, he adds of chachma, but not if they are empty. So if you don't have chachma, which they're translating a little bit to Divrei Torah, you're not going to get anything. You have to be smart enough, I guess, to receive what you're getting. So you have to be full of chachma to be able to get that. I'm just reading his translation. That's all.
Who is that?
This is the Kol Aliyah Nadaf. Kornfeld.
Okay, fine. Okay, yeah.
The online, but
you just said the Kailo. I didn't know what you were referring to.
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant Iyah Nadaf.
I know. Okay. Yeah. No, that's a great website. It sounds pretty similar to what we were saying. That
exactly. I just said it's chachma.
So
what they're saying is
I think the word spiritual matters, I think, is better than chachma. If you're in spiritual matters, if you're empty, well, if you're, it is interesting actually. There is a concept in spiritual matters that the best way to absorb is if you're empty, taka bittul. But so that contradicts what
your
we're
personal thing. Bittul is you're taking your ego out of the equation.
Right. Thank you, Isaac. So there is a concept of bittul. We shouldn't forget about that humility and self nullification and feeling humble is important. But what the Gemara here is saying is that if you learn when you're younger, you will be able to absorb more wisdom when you're older. And the opposite is if you don't learn when you're younger, it's harder. It's going to be more complicated to be able to absorb. You're an empty vessel. It's going to be hard to absorb. So, however, in the worldly matters, when it comes to physical things, an empty vessel is much better vessel to be able to absorb than a complete vessel. Then the Gemara jumped to another explanation. Davar acher. Gemara says, but there is another explanation, and that is that if you listened, if im shamaya biyashon, which means if you listened to things that you already learned, that you repeated, you reviewed, then tishma b'chadash, you will be able to delve deeper and understand things even more because you've reviewed your studies. You'll be able to flourish and find insights. But in yifna levavcha, if you turn your heart from reviewing, then you will not, shuv leif tishma, you will not be able to find any insights because, of course, if you don't review, you failed to plan and you plan to fail. You end up not being able to develop any of what you've studied. Yes, Robert.
And my interpretation is if you've not studied in the past, that you're empty. But by studying and you're full, you're able to then take more advantage of a foundation of what you've studied. So it's always good to be full. It's not that, it's because that provides for you to be able to understand even more fully, and you fulfilled an obligation for studying.
I think that's a good. You're well said, very well said. I think that clarifies it a little. That it's what you're doing is building a foundation. Good
exactly, and we always learn. We're always striving to learn,
right?
And need to be more enlightened. Okay, enough said.
I think also what it's saying is it might, some people have it easier because they had a very, good upbringing of in education in certain fields.
Right.
in Yiddishkeit. But nevertheless, of course, if a person tries, they will get there. They'll have to do the hard work, but ultimately they will get there.
Right.
So
I've been there before. I know what they mean.
Okay, so now we're going to start the next Mishnah. Berach al the Mishnah on page 48, and we are maybe 8 lines up from the bottom of the page. 40a. Berach al perois ha'ilan beire pri ha'adam. A person made the bracha on fruits of the tree. He recited a beire pri ha'adam, creates the fruits of the earth. So that's not the correct blessing. But the law is yatsa, he has fulfilled his obligation, and fruit of the tree can be considered fruit of the ground. That's what the Mishnah is basically telling us, that it's not the preferable thing to do. You're supposed to recite the correct bracha, Beire Pri Ha'etz, who creates the fruit of the tree. But you said, Beire Pri Ha'adama, Yatza, you have fulfilled your obligation. Al Peres Ha'aretz, if you recited the bracha for fruits of the ground, meaning for vegetables, you recited a Beire Pri Ha'etz, who creates the fruits of the tree. So the opposite case, Lo Yatza, you did not fulfill your obligation, because fruit of the ground does not grow on a tree. So if you said a bracha thanking Hashem for the fruits that grow on it, for the fruits of the tree, you really haven't. You're really not reciting the bracha that this is wrong. This is wrong. The other way, at least it's not wrong. It's still correct that the fruit of the tree is fruit from the ground, but fruit of the ground is not fruit from the tree. That's wrong, and therefore the bracha is not acceptable, and you would need to recite a bracha again. You'd have to recite the right bracha, the correct bracha, anew. And the Mishnah continues and says, "V'al kulam, on all types of foods, im amar shahako, niya b'dvara yotza." If a person says shahako, he has fulfilled his obligation of reciting a bracha. And as the commentaries point out, that if you are not sure of what the bracha is, at least after you did your research, and you are not sure what the bracha is, the halacha is that you can recite a shahakol. You can, even though the Mishnah says it as after the fact. If you did, you fulfilled your obligation. But the commentaries mention that Mr. Stuffik, you're allowed to rely on this and say shahakol. Yes.
Sometimes when you're at a wedding reception and they have the big dishes with everything, you have no idea of what you're putting in your mouth. I always say a shahakal, I know I'm covered.
Now, I've never been to that where you don't know what you're putting in your mouth. What are you referring to?
They have little dishes with different things. You don't know, is this fruit, is this vegetable, whatever it is. I'm saying, if my father used to say, when you go out of the house, if you can't recognize it, you shouldn't eat it, period. I'm saying, but if I do, I have the backup of always just saying a shahakal, I know I'm covered.
No, I hear you. I'm just trying to think of when that would be. I'm just not familiar with the wedding. You're talking about the smorgasbord, or you're talking about what they serve on the smorgasbord?
Right, exactly.
You know, maybe it's a different culture, different foods, different countries, that they have special, like moussaka.
Yeah, I don't know what that is, but
It's
in
an
any event,
dish. It's an eggplant dish.
Okay. Well, do you see the eggplant?
No. It looks very strange, and when you don't know what it, like what Isaac was saying,
right? You could say the shahakal.
Yeah.
Right. So here is the answer. to recite shahakol. However, a person is not supposed to rely on this because you're really supposed to learn the laws of brachas. But after learning the laws of brachas, which we're doing here, after doing that, and you're still suffix, that's when you sort of are. It's acceptable to rely on this. Or if you don't know what the food is, you don't know what you're eating, so it doesn't help to know the laws of brachas. Then this would be an option. Of course, the best option is if you can say brachas on other items and fulfill and cover it, or eat it in a meal.
Right.
So that's the better, even better option. But okay,
Oh, Rabbi,
but this is an option.
Rabbi, what about today when there are so many vegan options and you think that you're eating, I mean, you could mistake like cheese for something that's a vegetable, but now it's a cheese, looks like cheese or seems like cheese. What happens then? You could easily make the wrong blessing.
So, I mean, I'm assuming you're buying it in a store and you see what's in the ingredients.
Yeah,
So
but
you
somebody
sort of
else
can tell.
Yeah,
What?
but let's say your
guest doesn't.
guest doesn't necessarily know. Or like they have cheese and it's made out of coconut oil, and they have these hamburgers that are made out of coconut also, I think.
Right.
And
Most of these things anyway are shahakol. Most of these things automatically are shahakol. They round up to the extent that you don't see the original food.
Oh, okay.
And it's not the normal thing to do to grind these things to this. It's not like that they're supposed to be ground up, and this is like the norm. So generally the bracha is going to be shahakol anyway. So
in the future, it'll be the norm.
Yeah. So when it changes, actually, you're right, because everyone's soon going to be gluten free, and soon everyone's going to be this. But in the meantime, while we still have our freedoms, the bracha is would seem to be shahakol.
Thank you.
Most of those items. Yeah. But in general, right, you should look at the ingredients and and figure it out just to be sure. Okay, looks okay. Any other questions? Guess not. Shlomo Yosef, do you have a question over there? Okay.
Not yet. You're doing a good job.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
I'm glad you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you. Yes.
Can you see me?
No, we can't see you, but because you're on a phone that it's almost like a phone call. But it's okay, fine. But we can hear you and you can hear us, so that's good. Okay.
Thank you. Good.
So the Gemara says, Montana, who is the author, the opinion, the Iker Elon Ara. Who is the opinion that the main growth of the tree is the land? And because of that, if you recited Bari Pri Hadama, if you recited the blessing for the land, you have fulfilled your obligation. So Gemara says that this seems to be a Mishnah regarding the laws of Bikurim. In other words, what our Mishnah said seems to follow the logic of one opinion in a Mishnah about Bikurim. Now, what is Bikurim? Bikurim is the first of the 7 species, the first of those seven species of fruits that grow. You take those and you bring them to Jerusalem. And in Jerusalem, you bring it to the Beis Hamikdash, bring it to the Kohen, and you recite a whole paragraph praising Hashem, thanking Hashem for the land, and for the fruits, and so on. And the mitzvah of Bikurim, it's one of those mitzvahs that the Torah doesn't tell us any measurement for. And as the Mishnah says, Elu dvarim she'ein lahem shiur, these are the things that don't have any measurement. And it says hapeya v'habikurim. It says peya doesn't have any measurement. That's the corners of the field. And bikurim as well do not have an amount. The Torah doesn't give us an amount of how much a person has to give for bikurim, but you give from the first of your fruits. You want to give more, you give a few. But the point is that a person gives from the first of his fruits, and even though you've worked hard on and you really want these fruits for yourself, but the Torah tells us that we're obligated to bring the first of our fruits to the Kayin in the Beis Hamikdash and to, so to speak, donate them. And it's a lesson of acknowledgement, of thanking Hashem for the first fruits, for the best of our produce we give to Hashem. So the Mishnah that the Gemara here brings, it says as follows. Let me read the Gemara. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchok Rav Yehuda. Our Mishnah, this opinion that we see in our Mishnah is Rav Yehuda. Where is this Rav Yehuda? It's a Mishnah later on. The Mishnah in Bikurim. The Tanan, because we learned in Tractate Bikurim. Yavesh Hamayon, if the spring of water, the well of water that would irrigate the tree, if it dried up. So you took the fruits from for the Bikurim, and that field was irrigated from a certain stream of water, and if that stream dried up, and v'niktas ha'ilon, and the tree, or if you had this tree in a field and you took the fruits and afterwards the tree was chopped down, maybe ve'enai koire, you bring Bikurim to the Beis Hamikdash, but you're not allowed to recite. You can't say that paragraph because the paragraph says, I have brought the first of the pre-ho'adama, the fruits of the ground that Hashem gave me. Now, you can't really say that if the ground is no longer there. And when I say the ground, I'm referring to the tree and the stream that are all accessories to the ground. They're necessities. And if it's no longer there, so you can't really call it you can't say the ground that Hashem has given. So therefore you can only bring it, but you don't recite that paragraph. Rabbi Yehuda says, maybe v'koire, you could bring the Bikurim and you could even read that paragraph. And the reason of Rabbi Yehuda is because the main part of the field is the earth, and even the fruits that grow on the tree, they come from the strength of the earth. And even if the source of sustenance for the tree is from this mayon, this well in the stream of water, and from the tree is cut down. Nevertheless, the ground is what's really giving you the ability to grow. The ground, main thing is the ground. So even if everything was ended, and the tree is chopped down, it doesn't matter. You still say, Adama asher nasatali, the ground that you have given me. And the same thing would apply to Brochos, that if something grew on a tree, it's also considered ho'adama, it's considered the ground. And the Gemara understands that our Mishnah follows that view that the ground would be considered a major component of the fruit of the tree, and that's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, and therefore the fruit of the tree, you could, if you said the bracha for the ground, the Bari Pri Adama, you have fulfilled your obligation. Yes, Ben.
So I think the case that they're talking about is if the spring dried out, the tree died, and you cut it down. But before you cut it down, you took the fruit, and you have to give bikurim.
Right, you
So
took the
at
fruit
the
already
time that
before.
you took the fruit, it was connected to the ground.
Right. So, but when you brought it to the Beis Hamikdash,
Yeah,
you're talking about something that's not there, and you're saying the ground that Hashem has given me, but it's not current.
right.
It's not current. So therefore, one opinion is that's not good enough. The other opinion is that because it's the main thing is the ground is there. It's the accessories of the ground aren't there. So the ground is currently yours. The stream and the tree is not currently yours because it's not there anymore. So that's the argument between the rabbis and Rabbi Yehuda, and the Gemara is explaining our Mishnah that it fits with Rabbi Yehuda's view, and that the main thing is that the ground is the major component of the fruits of the tree. Now the Gemara continues and says that if a person made a mistake and recited for vegetables, he said Bari Pri Ha'etz, so it says he does not fulfill his obligation. He would need to go and recite a new bracha. So the Gemara says, "Al peiros haaretz chulu," on the fruits of the ground, meaning on vegetables. If a person said Bari Pri Ha'etz, he doesn't fulfill it. Pshita, the Gemara says, obviously you can't say that a fruit of the ground, that a vegetable is from the tree. You can't call it the thanking. You can't say I'm thanking Hashem for the fruits of the tree for a vegetable. So Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchok, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchok says, Lo nitzracha, it's not needed, the Mishnah, to tell us this only Ella Rabbi Yehuda, only according to Rabbi Yehuda's view, that it needs to tell us this law because there is an opinion that we would not be sure of this. You're right. Logically, you wouldn't even need to say this. The Mishnah should not tell us things that are obvious. But here, it's not exactly obvious, according to Rabbi Yehuda, because Rabbi Yehuda has a unique view. According to his view, you might think differently. Why? Because Rabbi Yehuda says, Chita min ilan. Chita is a type of tree. He says wheat. Wheat is a type of tree. And because wheat is a type of tree, so therefore, you would think that if you said a Bari Pri Ha'etz on wheat, then you would think that you would fulfill your obligations. And you would say the Bari Pri Ha'etz on wheat. So it comes and lets us hear that you do not say Bari Pri Ha'etz on wheat, only something that when you take off the fruit, it'll come back. That's when you say Bari Pri Ha'etz. Something that if you take off the fruit, it'll come back, but that doesn't apply to wheat, and therefore you would not say Bari Pri Ha'etz. Rather, you would say Bari Pri Ha'adama. So this is a very interesting Gemara because it gives us a certain rule of what is the difference between Bari Pri Ha'etz and Bari Pri Ha'adama, is if the fruit will grow again the next year. Now, we're going to read it inside, and you'll see even more details to this. The Gemara is going to discuss what was the tree that Adam sinned with. Titania, because we learned in a brisa. Elon she'achal mimenu Adam arisha, the tree that Adam ate from. Which tree was it? So here you got the sources of what type of tree was the Eitz Hadas, the tree of knowledge. The Tanya, because we learned in a brisa. Elon she'achal mimenu Adam arisha, the tree that Adam ate from. Reb Meir Aimer. Reb Meir says, Gefen hayah. It was a grapevine. So this is one view, that it was a grapevine. Mishum, Gefen hayah she'ein l'chad davar she'mevi yalala ala adam alayayin. There is nothing that brings crying to the person except wine. Shenemar, as it says, when Noach left the Teva, he planted a vineyard, and then he got drunk from the wine. Vayesh minayayin vayishkar. He drank from the wine, and he got drunk, and he rolled in his tent, and he came to a big embarrassment over there. He was naked, and so it would make sense that if Adam sinned with some type of a tree and it brought death to the world and such crying, and it would make sense that this would be the type of tree that he ate from. It must have been a grapevine, because then it would fit. Like, wine is something that causes embarrassment, and therefore it would make sense that that's the tree that he ate from, that he sinned with, similar to Noach's mistake and the embarrassment that he brought upon himself. Reb Nechemia says, you know what the type of tree it was? It was a fig tree. He says it was a fig tree that Adam ate from. The tree of knowledge was a fig tree. In the thing that they sinned, that was their correction. That was their way of atoning or fixing it. In other words, they used that to fix it. What do I mean? Because it says they covered themselves with the ale te'ena. Shenemar, as it says in the verse, vayisperu ale te'ena, and they sewed leaves of the fig tree, and they made for themselves some type of clothing. So since they fixed themselves with this tree of the fig tree, it would make sense that is their sin was also with the fig tree. So one of the explanations on this Gemara is that it's based on a medrash that one of the minister's sons sinned with one of the maidservants, and so they kicked out this minister from the palace, and the minister was knocking on doors, and no one wanted to let him in. But the one that he sinned with opened the door and accepted him. And so the same thing is Adam Arishain. He tried to. He was kicked out of Gan Eden, and he was going after the trees to use their leaves because of the embarrassment. No one accepted him until he came to the fig tree, and it opened its doors and accepted him. So that is the idea that is the source, that the fig tree must have been the one that he sinned with because it felt bad for him, because it was the one that sinned with, that he sinned with. So therefore it allowed him to use the leaves. So that's one of the explanations of this Gemara, that it means that he was able to, the fact that he was able to use its leaves, that it allowed him, so to speak, to use its leaves, that was a sign that must have been the tree that he actually sinned with. But the simple reading of the Gemara is that because they cover themselves with fig leaves, therefore it would make sense that is the tree that they sinned with, because we know that that's the way Hashem works. He likes to use the item that he you use what you sin, you use the exact item to be a corrective measure. There is such a concept. So Rabbi Yehuda says no. So we have two opinions. It was either the grape tree, a grapevine, or it was a fig tree, or the third opinion, Rabbi Yehuda says chita haisa. It was a wheat. It was a wheat stalk. Really, the tree of knowledge was wheat. That's Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Because a child doesn't know to say father and mother until it tastes the taste of wheat. And this wheat is of course a grain. Dagan means a grain. And the tree says Eitz Hadas. Rabbi Yehuda says that this is a type of tree. So we see that since Rabbi Yehuda holds that wheat could be considered a tree, therefore our Mishnah has to make sure that you know that even though he says it could be considered a tree, you can't recite a Bar Priya Eitzan. So one would think, I would think to say, Salka Daitach, I would think Amina to say, Hayel, since V'amar Rabbi Yehuda Chita Min Ilanu, that since that weed is a type of tree, Livrach Ale Bar Priya Eitz, you could recite on it a Bar Priya Eitz, Kamash Malah, and the Mishnah comes and lets us hear, Heicha Mavarchinon Bar Priya Eitz. When do you recite the Bracha Bar Priya Eitz? Heicha Dechi Shakalt Le Leperi, when you take the fruit, Isa Lagabza, the branch stays, Vahadar Mapik, and it continues to give off fruit the next year. But where you take the fruit, Lesa Lagabza, the Hadar Mapik, there isn't a branch that will give off fruit. Afterwards, in other words, it's over. You don't recite Bar Priya Eitz, rather you say Boire Pri Ho'adama. So what comes out from here is that even Rabbi Yehuda that says that could be called a fruit tree, type of tree, nevertheless, you can't recite a Bar Priya Eitz. So now we know what tree did they eat? Did they eat from the tree? What was the tree of knowledge? 3 opinions.
Not an apple.
Right, not an apple. But the 3 opinions are either a grapevine, a fig tree, or a
wheat stalk,
or a piece, or a stalk of wheat, right? So these are the three opinions of what it is. And nevertheless, even if it's a wheat stalk, and Rabbi Yehuda says it's a min elon, it's a type of tree, nevertheless, you don't recite a ber eitzah. Now, the interesting thing that a child doesn't know how to say father and mother until it tastes dagan, so what does he see from that statement? So he brings that statement because we're calling this the Eitz Hadas, the tree of Das. So what tree has knowledge? Das means knowledge. What tree gives knowledge? So he says this must be this wheat stalk, because wheat is what gives knowledge. Now it is interesting.
Until that age development, maybe, I don't know if he's saying, maybe he is, that the chita is giving the child the knowledge to differentiate between mother and father.
That's what it's saying. Now, Hasidic writings, they bring this statement often, especially on Pesach, that eating matzah gives us faith in Hashem. Michla de mehemnusa. As it says, Ein hatinak yedei elokus Abba ve'ema. You don't know how to call Abba ve'ema, meaning Hashem. You don't know how to call Hashem ad sheyitim tam dagan, until we have the taste of dagan, of wheat, and it's referring to grain, which is referring to wheat, and it's referring to the matzah, that by eating matzah we actually gain, we are able to connect to Hashem, and it clicks. Hashem is our Father. So just like on a physical sense, when the child eats bread, he actually knows to say father and mother. So the same thing is spiritually, when you eat matzah, it has a mystical effect on the person. It actually, it makes you feel trust in Hashem. And that's one of the reasons why the Chabad rabbis are always before Pesach giving out matzah, shmura matzah, to non-frum Jews, that they should be able, it should awaken in them the spark of knowing Hashem. It awakens in people this spark. So by giving someone some shmura matzah before Pesach, ein hatina yedei lukas abba ve'ima ad sheyitim tam dagan, until they taste the tam dagan, they don't know how to call their Father in heaven. But when they have the matzah, and the Zohar says this, that matzah is michla de mehemnusa. But in Hasidic writings, they connect that Zohar with this Gemara, that you actually, it affects, it somehow clicks, and it awakens in you the spark. And that's what we're trying to do, is light up people's spark and allow them to have feel the love of Hashem. And I'm sure it's discussed at more length as well, but that's just on a surface level that it's mentioned in Hasidic writings. Yes, Ben.
My mother used to say that they used to feed children till age 3 or 4 because they need really teeth to eat dagan. So, like Isaac said, it's the age they have to reach that they can eat dagan, and then they can also learn the difference between mother and father, or our Father in heaven,
So the Gemara seems to emphasize that it's not just the age. Somehow the dagan, somehow it affects them. That's what it sounds like from the Gemara.
But they can't eat it until they have teeth.
No, the point
unless they soak it in water or milk or something.
Well, a good mother would, but I'm just saying that it's not the age, it's when you stop nursing. That's the point. When they start eating real food, is when it happens. But yeah, I remember, Rebbe, this time of year, I wouldn't be able to come to the shir 20 years ago. We were sending 10 tons, 20,000 pounds of matzah to all the prisons, and military bases around the world. And yeah, Chabad is very serious about getting shmura matzah in everybody's hands. The problem
Wow.
wasn't the prisons, all the goyim wanted it.
Where did you get that amount of matzah? From Israel, or where did they?
No, we had. I'm trying to remember. We had
That's
deals, and worked it out with various. It wasn't like the retail guys. No, we were sending truckloads in Shulabal Harbor. We did it once, and then I sent it to my cousin. He had a fishing tackle factory in New Jersey, so he used to handle all our FedEx, and it was an operation with 10 Bikram coming in and grape juice and matzah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Okay. So that is the Gemara here, and what we're seeing is that it's interesting. The Gemara talks about the anaf, the branch. That there's the branch that gives the fruit, and a fruit tree is a tree that the branch stays, and then it'll give off fruit in the future. But if you take the fruit and there isn't a branch that will give off fruit in the future, so you don't recite the Bari Priya Eitz, rather you recite the Bari Priya Adama. So one of the things we're going to have to look into over here is about certain trees where certain parts of it falls off, but it grows back, and you don't have to replant it, but it does continue to grow. So, for example, like a banana tree, that the whole trunk almost falls off, but it does give off fruit afterwards. It does continue to give off fruit, but it has to regrow.
You don't have to replant anything.
Don't replant anything, but the trunk does regrow. So there you got an example of it. It'll give off fruit in the future without you replanting it, but there isn't. But the branch isn't there. So it's something we're going to have to look into about the fact that about the branch and so on. Is that a major factor or not? But my time is basically up. So if there's any questions, okay, I guess not. Have a wonderful day, everyone. We'll see you later.
Thank
Mr.
you,
Shah.
Rebbe.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you,
Rabbi.
Rabbi.